Welcome everyone back to another market talk. We have Bob the broker from Silek Financial, Matthew Johnson from Johnson Law, and my business partner Jeffrey Kalafut. Welcome everyone. How you guys doing?
Great.
Hey,
Thanks for having us.
good
Yeah,
morning.
let's talk about the real estate market. What are we seeing? Obviously, the inflation rate is down a little bit. How's that affecting mortgage rates, Bob? And where do you see this going?
Well, it hasn't helped mortgage rates at all, actually. The issue now is tariff on, tariff off. So I'm not getting into politics or anything, but
Mhm.
tariff on, tariff off has spooked the markets. They're not sure which way it's going. So I mean, rates have been just bouncing around in the high sixes on average for a 30-year fix, and some days into the low sevens, depending on what you're looking at.
Right.
So who knows? I mean, this is just could be a long, drawn out process. The Fed is talking about only two cuts this year, which may not really help all that much for mortgage rates.
Hmm. So are they predicting like where those cuts might end up by the end of the year?
I heard like September and December,
Okay.
and so two quarter cuts, but that's still up in the air. If inflation starts to go back up, you may see you may see that not cut to one. I mean, who knows?
Right. Are
So
you seeing a lot? Go
what
ahead.
you're saying, Bob, is just get used to these rates because they're going to be steady around this point probably for the rest of this year.
That's basically what I'm telling my clients. Yeah,
Right.
you know what? And most of them I feel um, they are kind of used to them.
Hmm.
And the ones that have those threes as we've said all along, are sticking it out in their current home,
Yeah.
and the rest of them are just buying within their budget.
Right. Matt, what are you seeing in transactions? Are you seeing a lot of battles still in regards to, saying inspection issues, any kind of like buyer's remorse or anything like that?
Oh, I have very little buyer's remorse right now.
Okay.
People are just happy to be able to find a house at the time. It's interesting. Remember, I'm always about 2 weeks, a week, 10 days, later than the real estate agents. You have all the action, then I get it through attorney review, and I can tell the pace about a week after you can.
Hmm.
If you go back 3 weeks, it was booming. We had a nice little boom. It looked like the spring market had arrived. There were deals coming in very quickly. They were, from my perspective, pretty seamless. There was a couple fall throughs, but had nothing to do with buyer's remorse. It had something to do with either the property itself or a problem on the seller side. Uh, and then all of a sudden, this week it stopped. It seems to me that the market has it perked. Everyone
Hmm.
sold everything that was out there, and now we're back to a slower market. Uh, what I will say is the people I'm dealing with when I'm on the purchasing side, they are a little bit more wary than I've seen people over the last couple of years. So they're now making it clear that, when they do inspections, for example, they want to make sure that they're getting a house that they're paying for. And that's another aspect of what I'm seeing. I am seeing still high over list pricing coming in,
Hmm.
significantly in some cases, depending. If you're in Morris County, very high over list. Warren County, not as much, but still high. And Sussex County, it depends on the property. But
Right.
they're paying a premium still. They're willing to pay more than the list price, but they're now expecting more when it comes to the inspection phase. I am having much less waiving of inspections than I have had over the last 2 years.
Hmm.
So that's an interesting change that I've seen because I'm used to that. Waiving appraisals, waiving inspections were the norm for quite a while to get a deal. And now only rarely do I see people outright waiving either one of those. And when you try to get them to waive it, if you've had a multiple offer situation, and an attorney gets involved, you know how that works. We come
Yep.
in claiming to waive things, and then your attorney switches that. It causes anxiety and it causes frustration from the other party because they're not willing to submit as they used to get a deal anymore. Even
Hmm.
in attorney review, there will be pushback. So we're working a little harder on the attorney review end. I'm not sure how the brokers, excuse me, how the realtors are seeing it from their side of things, but when I get these deals in, it's not a norm anymore to see waivers in most cases. That's not every. but in most cases. So we're back to a more normal relationship between buyers and sellers from the legal point of view right now.
Gotcha. So maybe the tensions, people have kind of figured this is kind of the norm and tensions aren't so high right now.
I think so. I think they also realize that, the sellers, depending on the property, of course, there's some hot properties always, but the ones that you don't have as much interest in, uh, they're not as they're not as aggressive. The buyers are not being as aggressive as they were, even as short as recently as 3 months ago.
Yeah.
I've seen that change.
Yeah. I think I've seen the tonality of a lot of buyers like, hey, if we get it, great. If we don't, we're okay with it now. Like it's switched a little bit. They're kind of they understand the landscape and they're just kind of moving and grooving and they're okay if it falls through, it falls through. If we get it, great kind of situation.
Yeah, I always try to gauge whether we have a buyer's or a seller's market. Obviously, we had a seller's market for quite a while. I don't think we have a buyer's market at this point, but it's getting closer to the neutral market at this stage from what I'm seeing on my end.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so right now in April, there was 14,000 properties listed in New Jersey, and the whole state is around a 3.2 month supply. So we're creeping up a little bit in regards to a balanced market, and a balanced market is going to be around 6 months of inventory. So we're creeping up a little bit. We'll see how if that stays where it is or it creeps back down. But yeah, I would agree with you. If a little bit, we're heading in the right direction, but we'll see if that bubble bursts a little bit and we start dropping down on inventory and
Yeah,
could change the
I think
tune.
what we're going to see though over the next few weeks, I think we're going to see a little bit of a surge coming. Just, from talking to other agents in the industry and myself, what I have coming up, I have a number of listings that are prepping and it's really a timing thing. Like they're going to hold off. They didn't want to rush through Mother's Day.
Yep.
Mhm.
They're going to hold off and we're going to get photos done before, Memorial Day weekend, and we're going to launch just after that. So I think we're going to see a surge right after Memorial Day of listings, and that hopefully will carry us through the summer months. And, hoping that, if rates stay steady or maybe tick down a notch, it might, help things out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had some conversations yesterday with realtors, and they all said, looks like a bunch are coming on in the next couple of days.
Yep.
Hmm.
So that's good to hear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. I did see some price drops in the Middlesex County on some properties coming, which was interesting. And because they were okay homes, they weren't really updated, but they were pushing the list price was pushing around $400 a square foot.
Hmm.
So that's pretty high in regards to not having updated kitchens or bathrooms or anything like that. So I did see some price drops in the Middlesex area. What I have been seeing lately is a lot of advertisements for the modular home building, like Boxable. Have you seen any of that? There's a lot of emerging modular small tiny home builders coming out now. I don't necessarily see that affecting the New Jersey market, but it could affect other states in regards to inventory. So just kind of keep an eye on see how that it's going to play out in the area.
Well, I mean, other states are very different than New Jersey. I mean, you and I have discussed,
Yeah.
Florida right now is a slow market.
Yep.
So, I mean, the thought is maybe we'll see some people who in New Jersey take advantage of that, sell high, and buy in Florida at a lower value.
Yep. Yeah, one of our partners in Florida, they have 20 almost 20 listings right now and just over 20 listings and they're just sitting on the market. And he's like, it is ripe for the picking for any buyers who want to come down now.
Yeah, it's a good market for us to move.
Yeah. Yeah. Jeff, what are you seeing in regards to, some clients and deals? Has it been, a battle? What are you seeing right now?
So, it really depends on how early in the whole buyer, world they are. Like I have brand new buyers who just haven't gotten beat up yet. And you try to explain to them what the situation is and you show them the comps and go over everything and say, listen, like these are the things that the sellers are going to look at. This is what's going to make them comfortable. And if they listen, they have a better shot, right? If they don't, they're in for a rude awakening.
Yeah.
Um, I just got, we're under contract right now with the property. I've worked with these buyers for 2.5 years, and
Hmm.
I got them a FISBO,
Yeah.
which, quite honestly, we did really well on it. I'll put it that way. We did really well on the price. I was shocked that somebody was selling it for sale by owner in this market because they didn't expose the property the right way. We went in, we were aggressive with what we offered, and that's why we secured it pretty quickly. But, it took 2.5 years for us to get this property for them,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. But they
Yeah.
were ready to listen when it came time to it. They flat out said, Jeff, like, we trust your judgment. We've seen how you operate, and we're gonna do what you say on this point on this one because we want to get the house.
Yeah, they
So
move fast when they see and
yeah,
if they're seasoned. Hopefully, it doesn't take 2 years to be seasoned. But if
right,
they're if they're
right,
seasoned and they like something, they're focused and they're going to dial in and figure out
right.
what's going to
Well,
make it
and
happen.
it's especially in that lower price point, right? I mean, anywhere in our area, trying to find something under $500,000
Hmm.
is
Yeah.
so difficult, right?
Yeah.
And they're between the 300 and 400 mark, generally speaking. They budget went up a little bit up to like the 450, 470 mark.
Hmm.
We got the house for we actually, I think the appraisal came in 30,000 higher than what we paid.
Hmm.
So we did well on it as far as value goes for these kids. But if that was on the market, who knows where it would have went.
Yeah. True.
2 years
Yeah.
is kind of normal these days to have a relationship with a client, right? Like it used to
Yeah.
be 30 to 60 days. People would call me, I'd get them pre-approved, and 30 days later we'd be under contract, and 60 days they'd be closed.
Yeah, all my buyer agency agreements are a minimum of a year at this
Hmm.
point, minimum. And I explain why. And I tell people, listen, if things aren't going to work out, of course, we can always go our separate ways. But just so you know, like I'm setting realistic expectations. I'd love to get you a house in 2 weeks, but it might be 6 months. It might be 12 months. It might be 2 years. It might be 2.5. You just don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I just closed on a property last month. Was working with the clients for 3 years. 3 years. It's interesting now the buyer's consultation, or you have a conversation with a new buyer and it's almost like, are you ready? Are you ready to get into this? Like, listen, it could take a long time. Just be prepared. This is not going to happen overnight.
Right. I
Yeah.
had a consultation yesterday and I was talking to these buyers and I told them the first thing I said is just be prepared that real estate is a contact sport.
Hmm.
You're going to get the snot kicked out of you here and there, and you just have to get back up and keep moving forward. I'm
Funny,
brutally
we're
honest about
having
it.
we're having the same types of conversations. I'm telling clients, look, don't go out every weekend, make it a full-time job, or else you're going to be miserable. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
pick and choose, maybe in the beginning, but pick and choose then what you want to see. Don't get yourself crazy over it because it could take you some time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no doubt. It's a tough market. The buyers are tired that we've been working with. New buyers coming in every week, right? New buyers are coming into the buyer pool, and it's a tough time to be in that situation right now. It really is.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it takes, you got to have some skin in the game and you got to be prepared. Like you said, it is a contact sport and, you have to have a fast recovery time to keep moving
Yeah.
forward for
It,
sure.
it seems like less offers though. What are you guys seeing? Less offers on houses?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
depends on location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really
Location and
depends.
price point. Like that's one of the things about our market because we service so many different areas, different demographics, different price points. So like, there's some areas that are so hot, it's ridiculous. You'll have 40, 50 people at an open house.
Yeah.
In
Mhm.
others, you creep up a little higher price point, not as desirable area, or not as much of a house for that price point. You'll get 3 or 4 people for an open house, which
Yeah.
equates to 1 or 2, 3 offers.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So it's definitely different depending on where you are.
It is. And also a lot of the buyers, like I was talking about Middlesex County, buyers aren't going in with blinders on. They know when the seller is reaching too high and they'll let that sit and they'll watch it. So,
Yeah, the
um,
majority of buyers are well educated in today's markets. They're on Zillow, they're on Realtor, they're tracking things, they're paying attention to what's going on. So when a house hits the market that they like and it's way overpriced compared to what something else sold in that neighborhood, they read it, they read that right away. They see it.
Right.
yeah, sellers can still hurt themselves by
Oh yeah,
overpricing for sure.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's still a pretty good, you have to use strategy with this,
Yep.
and you want to price it just below where you think it's going to go. And it usually just pushes into a little bit of a bidding war and you get solid offers at that point. I don't want 50, but I'll take 5 or 6 any day. You know,
Right.
Yeah.
no more 85 offers on anything, please.
Yeah. That
I,
was
I have a question for Jeff and Jay. Have you seen any situations where you have, dare I say, fixer-uppers that are out there that would require significant repairs in order to be livable? And if that's what you're seeing, Bob, I guess the secondary question is, do they still have the 203K loans that they used to offer? And if so, are they readily available? Are they harder to get? Because I've had a few of my long-term clients who have these types of buildings, wondering if it's worth even putting them up. And I'd like to get your opinion on the quote literal fixer-uppers.
mm,
There's not as many from what I'm seeing. I think the buyer pool out there, the investor pool that exists in our area would love to see more.
Mm,
I mean, just an example, right? Real life example is that property in Englewood that we sold, 350 showings in 3 days,
Yeah.
right? 85 offers with all cash offers for the most part, right? So we had a couple, construction loans thrown in here and there, but those properties will sell. And I think that, priced strategically, they'll sell for top dollar, even
yeah.
in the condition that they're in.
Yeah. And it also depends on the fixer-uppers of how much work it would need to not eliminate certain buyers. FHA or VA, like if you can get it up to par to where it would meet those standards, so you can obviously still have a larger buyer pool. It's obviously a case by case basis of how much fixing up would need to be done to make sure you don't eliminate certain factors. Um, but yeah, Bob, you could speak to 203K loans. What are you
Yeah.
seeing those?
I'm actually seeing more investors, fix and flippers with hard money loans,
mm,
jumping on these types of properties. Yeah, the 203K and the home style for conventional renovation loans are available and they're out there. But I'm getting more calls from investors who are looking to use hard money to fix and flip,
Mm,
which is kind of interesting. Yeah, I find that most of the clients that we start talking about the renovation loans and they're like, I don't want to do it.
Right. There's
Right.
extra steps that people don't want to deal with.
mm.
Yeah, it's a lot of work,
Yeah.
owning a home and having to, get contractors and be on top of them. And once they start hearing about the contractors and the work that needs to be done, they're like, I want to move into something that's already done.
Yeah. And I think that's the majority of our buyers right now. They don't want to really do a lot of work, but there's still a ton of investors to do the buy and flip.
Yeah.
yeah.
And they're itching to spend money because they've
Oh,
been
yeah.
on the sideline for a while. So the investors are starting to, look at this and say, all right, now maybe we can start finding some properties and jumping on them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, the amount of money out there for investors, even in the buy and flip or even the buy and hold strategy, they're like you said, Bob, they're waiting on the sideline to put their money somewhere
Mhm.
to one, have a depreciating asset or have a income property. So yeah, it's it's for the taking for sure. It just depends on how much fixing it needs for sure.
Thank you.
But yeah, anything else anybody want to add to this crazy real estate market that we're in?
I'll give you some feedback or some guidance, I guess, on once you have a contract. The sellers, be a little bit more open to negotiation.
Hmm.
Uh, of course, a year ago, sellers knew they had something that people wanted. They were getting huge offers way above list, limited inspections, etc. And while it is still heavy on the listing side as far as the price that they're paying, or getting, I should say, on that end. When you get down into the contract negotiation, if you're going to allow an inspection, be prepared that there's going to be some things that come up. And rather than just saying no quickly, as you might have done in the past, keep the deal together. I'm one of those attorneys that don't like deals to die. I always think, one bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. You have something that's together. You've gotten through the attorney review phase. You know the people you're working with. You already know the style of the attorneys. and you're close to a deal, it's always a shame, in my opinion, if you get stubborn to say no quickly and not think through what the alternative may be. The market always changes, as everyone knows, and sometimes you have a deal that might be better than you even realize. So my guidance to the agents that are working with sellers right now is just keep your clients reasonable and objective if you can do so. Don't let them get greedy, because I have a couple of clients that lost deals because they just thought, they had the power and they didn't. And it was a shame because they had a great parties, they had great pricing, and they got very stubborn on some minor things, to be frank. And that's always a shame, in my opinion. So that's my advice to the agents that are working with the sellers. Try to guide them a little bit more, to be objective and reasonable and not get personal about the numbers when it comes to inspections.
Right.
The buyer side, be patient. As you know, you're talking about the patient level, and it is a process for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's especially when, you have an offer and it's accepted and maybe some home inspection items do pop up. Like, obviously the deal is tied up and there's time passing. Like, and if the seller gets too stubborn and another property comes on the market in that neighborhood that might be similar or even better, trying to go back to the market and trying to get another buyer that's going to, just look past any of those home inspection issues, it's going to be tough. You can possibly get a lower price at that point.
Yeah.
So
yeah, keeping those deals together is critical, especially when it comes to some of the even some major home inspection issues, right? Because if it's a material defect that's going to have to be disclosed to everybody, why don't you just deal with it now at top dollar versus trying to remarket the property and dealing with it later?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, especially like septic issues. You're not going to bypass that.
No.
It doesn't work that way.
Septic issues, structural issues, like you have to just deal with it.
Yeah, you can't bypass that, and someone's not going to overlook that. Every property needs a functioning sewer system. So.
And going back to basics, the people on this video have been doing this quite a long time. The basics are, this is a business decision, and we always have to remind our sellers and our buyers that this is something that needs to be worked out in a logical, calm fashion. Don't let your passions, your emotions overwhelm your good decision making. I think if you have a good partnership with your realtors, the attorneys and the realtors can have the same mindset. It seems to work out better for the clients on both sides, whether you're a buyer or a seller in this market, in my opinion.
Yeah, communication's everything, and especially if you have all the parties working together, it's great.
Yeah.
Makes it so much easier.
It does.
It really does.
Yeah.
It can explode if things aren't moving together. And we've all been there. We've all seen it where people are pulling in different directions and it just gets ugly.
Yeah.
And it just leaves a bad taste in the mouth for both buyer and seller.
Of course.
That's really what happens, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the other problem is, who's your attorney? Because if you have a real estate attorney that knows how the process works, it's much better for everybody. On the other hand, you have a litigating attorney, which people pick sometimes. The attorney can really sway the mind of their clients. I mean, you have a lot more power than people realize. If you phrase something in a way that says, "Oh, I would not do that," or "We can't allow that to happen," that's not, quote, fair. You start using words like that, you rile your clients up. You don't bring people together that way. And for whatever reason, when you have one of those attorneys that do everything or is a litigator, you seem to have that unnecessary drama, which infuriates and really aggravates people in the process. So my other recommendation for all of our agents is make sure you do your best to try and get your clients to a dedicated real estate attorney who's going to keep people together, as opposed to considering this a battle, even though it might be a battle.
Right.
That's
right. That way. That would be
the last thing we need is somebody's Uncle Vinny coming in, just blowing things up. And we've all seen it. We've all seen it happen. We've warned our people, and sometimes they have to learn the hard way, unfortunately, and drag us through the mud along with them.
One of the first things I check, is the attorney a litigator or a real estate attorney. It's a
Yeah.
huge difference.
Let's go to trial. There's going to be a
Yes.
jury. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that's definitely part of what we do with our buyer consultation is explain those differences because, everybody knows somebody, right? We all know that.
Mm-hmm.
And in my experiences, the family member who's the attorney, especially the litigator, who says, "Hey, I'll take care of my niece or my nephew," it ends up blowing up.
Yeah.
They don't take care of them. They become last on their list because they're not getting paid anything, and they treat it like they're in front of a jury versus helping them buy a home.
mhm. Yeah.
Family
No,
friend,
no Uncle Vinny's. Sorry, guys.
family friend is the worst because, of course, the emotions are there. Just like when the realtors are
Right.
related to their clients. You let your emotions get involved, or you like them and you want to fight for them.
Mhm.
Right.
Try to avoid your family members as lawyers. They may be great lawyers at other things, but if they're not a dedicated real estate lawyer,
Right.
try to avoid that, folks.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. It gets interesting quick for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Jay and I have had those conversations. This is going to be a mess.
Yeah. This is going to be a mess.
You ready for this one?
Mm.
I know we don't talk about this too much, but on the listing side at least, if you're getting multiple contracts in and price terms conditions, well, you can ask them who they're going to use as their attorney.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
I know that's not something that we bring up very often, but that's an integral part of whether a deal's going to go through or not. So you can be very upfront when you get an offer and just reach out. So who's the attorney going to be? Do you know who the attorney is going to be?
Oh,
And if
yeah.
someone you know and you've had experience with, you may want to pick that offer if you have a similar offer to
Good
someone
advice.
and Uncle Vinny in. So
Yep.
No,
whether
everything
you have
that is a
ability to
huge
do it.
part of the terms, especially when everything is so close. I've asked that plenty of times, who you guys going to use?
Mhm.
And I explain to my sellers, like, this is why I ask these questions. You're paying me for my experience, my expertise, right?
Mhm.
So I'm going to be unbiased. I'm going to tell you the facts of what I've experienced, and you make the decision how you feel, how you deem fit, plain and
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah, a lot of times when we have listings, when they submit the offer, we'll ask them for the lender's contact information and the attorney that they're going to use contact information as well, to make sure that we can button everything up and everyone knows what they're doing, for sure.
Yeah, we have this conversation a lot in the office too. I mean, we're usually not the ones to help guide on the attorney, but we try to find ways that we can. Right?
Mhm.
That's a big conversation. How can we guide our clients to the right attorney when we're second or third in position? Usually third. So that's a often discussion.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's really important to have a solid team behind you to get you past the finish line. Because if there's one player that's not, in the game, it's tough. It could a lot of dragging feet, or we're not on time with responding on certain things. It just doesn't set a good precedent to get to the finish line, for
Or
sure.
you have an attorney that's your enemy. I mean, how many times have you been on a deal where you have a client that you have a relationship with? They bring in an attorney that, well, thinks they're in charge and butts heads with everything you're suggesting they do. It
Mhm.
just causes chaos. So
It does.
Yeah.
teamwork is essential in this market, in my opinion, in this industry, for sure.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
really is.
communication is critical too. There has to be open lines of communication between all parties.
Yep.
I've had experiences where the attorney just won't even take my phone call, and I'm like, this is just not going to go well because they're giving an advice that doesn't make any sense, and I'm stuck in the middle trying to maintain emotions. You
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough when the attorney doesn't communicate properly as well, because we are the boots on the ground and we're giving, hey, we're going to go in this direction and this is why perspective. And then all of a sudden you see an email or a letter come across, you're like, whoa, where are we
yeah,
going
what the
with
hell
this?
is that?
Yeah.
Well, Jeff knows that when an email or a letter like that's about to come through, he gets a phone call right away
Yeah,
to
yeah,
warn him and explain the position, and actually not just warn him, say, "What do you think?" I mean,
Yeah.
that's the key. I don't know why a lot of well, I do know why a lot of non-real estate attorneys do it, but sometimes it's good to feel out the situation from the person closest to it, which would be the
right.
Jeff and I do that all the time, just to make
Yeah.
sure that I'm going the right direction for the situation. And he has changed my mind many times. So I think that's imperative for these deals to go through as smoothly as possible in this type of a market.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, communication is key all around, right?
Absolutely.
When one party isn't communicating, it makes the whole deal more difficult.
You know, that's another thing. It has nothing to do with really attorneys, but I have noticed this, and you just made me think of this, Bob. My office has been communicating more with the lenders than ever before. I mean, we always had some type of communication, but usually it was routine or paperwork related. But I've noticed we've had to actually make phone calls, talk to the lender, the broker, find out if we could do something or if, you know, one of our ideas would work. We've actually had a new change. We are now communicating differently with our lenders, which is, I guess, something that is going to keep the deal together better, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's great. That is great.
All hands on deck when it
Yeah.
comes to this market, for sure.
Yeah, especially when working with our buyers right now. I mean, it's whatever we can do to get them the house that they want and, you know, make it a smooth transaction. That's what we want to do.
Yeah. And there's so many stages to the transaction. You know, obviously the agents in the beginning are carrying a lot of the weight to one, find the property, negotiate the deal, get the offer across, and then the attorneys step in, and then the mortgage processor has to get in, and then, you guys are carrying the weight on the second half. And Bob, you're carrying the weight a lot right now and having to deal with the co-op we're working on. A lot of stuff behind the scenes that need to be ironed out. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of stages to it for sure. So, all right, gentlemen, if I think that's a wrap for today, unless anyone's got anything they want to add before we jump off here.
No,
Cool.
good stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today, and look forward to the next one.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
Take
you.
care, guys.
Take care.
Thank you.